Let's talk about Ace Attorney Apollo Justice, the sequel to the first trilogy of visual novel-styled courtroom drama operas. Apollo Justice was released some years after the original Game Boy trilogy on DS. It used its hardware well and had engaging ideas and scenarios, but it had the toughest act to follow. The case directly prior was the best in the series, and it was meant to end the series. To write an engaging sequel which breathes new life into Ace Attorney, engages new players, acknowledges fans, and delivers a new, satisfying story was the challenge for the first new game after the beloved original trilogy, and it knocked it out of the park in its first case. This is Apollo Justice in Turnabout Trump, How to Write a Sequel. The risks this case posed cannot be overstated. This case had to be immediately gripping in a way that the first Turnabout, the Lost Turnabout, and Turnabout Memories didn't. It's quite clever and the poker setup is great. For a case with no investigation, it's actually fairly intricate and tremendously well set up. I'll present information as it's presented to the player for the full effect. If you've never played an Ace Attorney game, I'm making this video for you. There will be spoilers for this case, but they're in service to sparking excitement and intrigue for the series. We open to a familiar lobby. Apollo's defense mentor, Christoph Gavin, is standing, arms folded. Crucially, his first animation is a soft, sweet smile to calm our nerves. He tells Apollo that he dined with the defendant, and this case cannot fall through. Why Christoph doesn't defend him is unclear. Our defendant appears before us. This is the legendary Ace Attorney, Phoenix Wright. Phoenix starred in the first trilogy of games, never losing and fighting for those who had no one else. Here he is, accused of murder and looking a little weird, honestly. He has stubble, a hoodie, and this hat that says Papa and has a weird little smiley face on it. Very funny is that Apollo knows Phoenix. He's a fan like we are, and repeatedly acts with blind devotion and regard for the now legendary attorney. Apollo very nervously begins his defense, and, of course, some goofy rendition of Winston Payne is very cocky about how short the trial is going to be. This dude is always too confident for how quickly his legs are swept out from under him. Here are the basic facts of the case. The victim, Shady Smith, came to defeat the undefeated Phoenix Wright in a game of poker in a basement hideout of a restaurant, where Phoenix Wright works as a pianist. He's no longer a lawyer. The game ends in a fight, as Wright is accused of cheating, and Smith is struck over the head with a bottle of, grape juice, which has always confused me. The game is rated T, we know it's wine. Christoph tells the court that only the cards, their backs wreathed in blue flame, know its final outcome. This line is delivered strangely to throw up eyebrows. Remember it. The games are played alternately with red and blue decks to prevent cheating. Cross-examination takes place. Wright gets a sick dunk off on Winston. Wright's fingerprints are on the bottle, upside down. This is the truly killer piece of evidence in this case. Apollo has a very funny first objection. The screen shakes, and the speed of all his text nail home inexplicitly how nervous and new to this he is. A new witness is called, Olga Orley. Her body language is key, not just in this first obviously nervous pose. In her animation, she covers her mouth and looks off in the distance. Fortunately, she has a few useful photos. Olga is a perfect first witness. It's immediately evident that she's hiding something, but it's more nuanced than Frank saw it. In that case, we're shown Frank committing murder and pronouncing that he'll blame it on Larry, but here we see Olga assume defensive body language. We get the impression that she's being dishonest. This is fundamental to Apollo's skill set. He develops the ability to perceive body language to know when somebody's lying. Turnabout Trump, indeed, the poker idea fits perfectly in a courtroom of lying and bluffing. It's clear from the picture who won the game. The prosecution claims that Wright struck the victim after losing his first game ever. But if you count the chip values and think of it creatively, Apollo will point out that the small chips are actually worth 1,000, while the large chips are 100. Wright did win. It's an easy puzzle, but it introduces the flexible thinking needed to turn this and every case on its head. I must mention that the track Tell the Truth is excellent, as most tracks in this game are. Olga claims that Phoenix cheated, but he lost the hand, it seems. There's some confusion about the final hand. An ace from the victim's hand has gone missing, one that would implicate Phoenix cheated. There's an interactive portion which uses the dual screen to flip around the hand. One of the cards is the wrong color. It was switched, but by who? Why? If it wasn't Phoenix, which it couldn't have been, surely it was Orley. Apollo has an interesting theory. If no one swapped the card during the match, perhaps the killer took it after. Olga wouldn't have done this, nor would Phoenix. But who remains? Someone who wasn't playing, who didn't realize the deck was red cards. Indulge me in a tangent. In every game, as you're starting, the common denominator is your mentor. Someone who pipes up when your back is against the wall. Someone who talks you through the case and is willing to come back from the dead to help you fight for justice. I mean that very literally. Mia Fey comes back from the dead to help you fight for justice. Perhaps someone with a reassuring smile who appears in the cover. We return to court after a recess. Olga, cornered, throws off her coat. Her body language previously makes a bit more sense. She's actually a plant, a professional cheater. Olga confesses she was in cahoots with Shady Smith. She planted a card on Phoenix, and in the last hand, 5 aces would appear. He'd be searched and dethroned, but where's the 5th ace? And where's the planted card? Wright was searched, and no card was found. The case is beginning to heat up. The soundtrack slows and swells in this incredible audio flip into Apollo's skill for perceiving behavior. Every time Olga mentions the killing blow, she touches her neck. As it turns out, after no card is found, Shady Smith has a fit of anger and knocks her out cold. Phoenix takes the stand again to bust the case open. The mismatched card doesn't fit. There was someone who was at the scene but didn't play. Who has been closely involved and even mentioned the cards being blue when the last hand was actually played with a red deck? Defense attorney Christoph Gavin. The court is stunned. The judge asks Phoenix to testify about Gavin's contact before the meeting with Shady, but Gavin objects. We're at a bizarre crossroads where the accused points the finger at his own attorney, who is quick to stop him from testifying. But if you'll recall, Christoph isn't Phoenix's attorney. Apollo is, at Phoenix's request. Many of the oddities begin to fall into place. This trial is a trap set to catch the real killer, and you are central. Phoenix claimed he found the planted 5 of hearts in his pocket by sheer chance and slipped it into a bottle, the murder weapon. But where was the card? The bottle is empty. Phoenix plays the call between him and Gavin, where he asks Gavin to represent him in court, and Gavin mentions the victim's bald head. Of note is that Shady Smith only took off his hat during the game. The only way Gavin would have been able to see his bald head is if he was the killer. Phoenix's ears perk up and he realizes at this point that Gavin is the murderer. So, Phoenix covers the victim's head with the hat lying on the floor to trap Gavin. In recess, Phoenix's daughter gives Apollo a trump card, an ace of spades, with 1 drop of blood on it. We're given a 3D map of the crime scene where Gavin confesses he saw the crime through a small hole in the wall. Phoenix takes the bench and has a few fan servicey objections and themes, but it feels nostalgic and doesn't really hog the spotlight. We see a new animation from Gavin, one that's a bit more menacing and doesn't even move for flavor. We follow a new line of reasoning. If Smith bled onto the card, the killer would have taken the card to get rid of the evidence, but why take the card? And how would blood have reached that side of the table in the first place? If Smith spun in his rolling chair and was attacked by someone behind him, the killer would want to get rid of the card and spin him back to frame Wright. But there's a large cabinet in the way. The defense requests that the cabinet be investigated, and it is reported back later that behind it is a secret passage. Further, moving the cabinet would block Gavin's vantage point of the crime. The question of Phoenix's prints remains. In examining this photo, it becomes clear that for Phoenix to lift a bottle in a rack like this, he would have to grab it upside down at the neck. Gavin took one of these bottles and switched it with the murder weapon to frame Wright. Sure enough, inside one such bottle is the missing 5 of hearts, closing the case. Defense attorney Gavin is defeated, revealed as the killer. Phoenix's plan worked in full, though there's one piece of evidence which doesn't fit. After the trial, Phoenix admits that the trump card, which in actuality Gavin took with him and destroyed, is a forgery. Apollo asks him if the rumors about a legendary case 7 years ago, which had Phoenix turn in his badge over accusations of forged evidence, were true. None of that matters much now, does it? To which, and I'm not kidding, Apollo slugs Phoenix across the face. Writing an engaging murder mystery is difficult. Following up the best text-based series of all time with a sequel starring a new rookie lawyer must have been nearly impossible, and yet, here this case is. It sets the stage for not only this game, but the rest of the series. At an important crossroads, it delivered engaging material packed with Ace Attorney's signature brand of silly, quirky humor. It's excellent. Maybe you know that already. If you've never played an Ace Attorney game, I hope you'll consider picking one up. They're all like this, and they're all so dear to me. They're available on mobile, PS4, and Switch, and worth the $10 or so. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching.